Closing thought.
Hey guys, welcome back to the pod. We are here today for the third episode of Parasyte, the Maxim, and all I can say is, holy shit. I mean, what an episode. Coming off a little disappointed from our last discussion, I can definitely say this episode had me hooked the entire time. The cliffhanger at the end was so intense, I almost thought about just skipping this recording so I could see what happens next. Not that I would let you guys down, but I mean, come on. My ass cheeks were clenched way too tightly. I'm sure you guys are ready to jump right back in, so let's get started with this episode's thought dump. Okay, while the majority of episode 3's plot and climax obviously revolves around Ryoko Tamura and the Parasyte school lockdown, there's a couple things I quickly want to cover first. I did notice at the beginning of the episode that we are still getting these kind of small hints of Murano having some kind of ability to detect that something's up with Shinichi's situation. She's constantly asking him if he really is Shinichi Izumi, and then in the last episode, she didn't want to hold his right hand. In this episode, she was walking after school with Yuko on the bridge, and she was able to see Shinichi taking a city bus from pretty far away. So, of course, we can obviously say that maybe she just happened to notice him, right? But I'm definitely getting the vibes from the way the scene was conveyed that there is some sort of supernatural or maybe psychic connection there. Hell, when they first met up in this episode, I'm pretty sure she starts telling him about how she noticed that he's changed lately, but they didn't really elaborate on that. Time will tell, I'm sure, as we continue watching, but I'm going to trust my first instincts on this one. When Shinichi was having breakfast with his parents, his dad starts to mention that the death toll in the news for the mincemeat murders is past, I think, like 80 victims at this point. So just like the Murano speculation I have, I don't want to start to jump the gun on this theory, but I'm getting the feeling we are building up to something bigger here, you know? Like at some point, this city can only sit by so much before we get some kind of implemented curfew or checkpoints, maybe some cameras installed on every street light or block. It could be that this eventually causes some sort of civil unrest and we get mass protests or riots until demands for answers are met by the public. The show keeps this momentum going for some reason, and if I don't know, if I had to put my finger on it, this is my best guess. It's going to have that slow leaking pipe effect until it finally bursts, and we're going to have a mess on our hands. With those thoughts out of the way, let's take some time to focus on Ryoko Tamura and Mr. A. The conversation at the diner had my anxiety going just a bit more than I'd like, with how unhinged Mr. A seems with all of his facial twitches. His spaced out blank stares really sealed the deal to me, and it kind of seemed in that moment that he was going to lose control and Shinichi or Ryoko would have to put him down in public, which definitely would have been pretty problematic as Shinichi and Migi can't hide their identity by changing their facial appearance. I think what's pretty cool about the writing of this episode, and as of right now, the show in general, is how thought out it is. You know, it's taking on several different angles that I haven't even thought about, and it's pretty balanced in fleshing out answers evenly. Discussing that the parasites can't reproduce more parasites, only human babies, wasn't really something that crossed my mind at any point. Let's piggyback off that statement for just a second and acknowledge that these creatures share different levels of intelligence, right? Just kind of like we humans do. The fact that Migi and Ryoko Tamura have sort of an intellectual instinct of self-reflection, but other parasites like Mr. A only care about survival it's actually intriguing. Humans can contribute their internal dialogue and maturity level sometimes to environments that they surround themselves with or grow up in, right? Well, as we saw in the show, the parasites just fell from the sky and immediately looked for the closest host they could possess before dying off. So that really starts to make me question why they don't necessarily have kind of a uniform or universal way of thinking. Some of them are smart enough to know not to eat humans within their immediate social circle because obviously they're aware of the attention or maybe position that would put their safety in. This conversation left me with two questions though. One being, why do they have to resort to cannibalism of whatever host they infect? Is it because when they take over a brain of any kind, they have to eat a substance of similar structure or DNA? Maybe this theory is why Migi doesn't have to, seeing as how he didn't infect Shinichi's brain. So he gets his nutrients from the bloodstream, just like a regular human appendages do. You know, your fingers, your arms, your legs. This also would explain why Migi doesn't feel hunger, right? Because the brain is what receives the signals for hunger. The second question I have that we'll touch base on later in another podcast is, what the hell did Ryoko mean by her and Mr. A didn't fuse with their host the same way? Anyways, the real climax of this episode, as we all know, is Mr. A taking the intruder detour through the school in broad damn daylight to murder our dynamic duo, you know? Besides the fear of Shinichi unveiling his secret by fighting in front of everyone, it's pretty damn disturbing that Migi was ready to use other students as collateral damage. I'm pretty sure the term wall of flesh was not exactly in my vocabulary before this. I'd love to sit here and discuss the fight between the two, except we were given a pretty giant fucking cliffhanger right as the two parties faced off, so I guess make sure you tune into our next discussion for that. Lastly, guys, I can't even explain how much I love the fact that Shinichi has a parasite in his life that he can't avoid. Taking over a teacher, especially one that could end Murano's life at any point, is insanely deserving of our attention. What a helpless and miserable feeling that would be on a daily basis. The amount of stress would probably be way too much for most of us to handle. Also, just a side note, Migi mentioned, I think twice in this episode, that Shinichi's heart rate and anxiety levels were directly affecting his ability to fight and defend them efficiently. So I'm thinking we can lay my theory of whether or not Migi has a form of mind control or emotional control over Shinichi to rest. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this discussion. I hope you guys find just a little bit of enjoyment in what you heard. And if you have any recommendations, criticisms, or observations of the show or episode that I may have missed, make sure you leave those in the comments down below. I enjoy discussing film equally as much as I do watching it, so hopefully this channel brings you just a bit of happiness or value to your day. As always, guys, please make sure you stay safe out there, and more importantly, stay munchin', stay crunchin', and I hope we see you next time. This is Swimming in Popcorn, signing off. I needed some juice for this review.